Xiaomi have released their T-series devices 4 months earlier this year, which I guess kinda makes sense if they plan on tying their global launch to their China launch for their upcoming 18 series phones later this year. We'll have to wait and see if that actually happens, but for now, what's new with the Xiaomi 17T Pro? Well, just like with most recent phones, there is a price bump of $100 across the board, bringing its starting price up to €899. But I do feel there are enough upgrades here to justify that. Box contents are similar in terms of getting the actual phone, a rubber black case, and a charging cable, but they have now brought back the included charging block in certain regions, and this time it's 100 watts. So the first upgrade is a bump in wire charging, going from 90 watts up to 100 watts, and reverse wire charging is also increased from 10 watts to 22.5 watts. Wireless charging is still the same though at 50 watts, but battery capacity has seriously increased, going from 5,500 mAh to a staggering 7,000 mAh capacity. It also comes in blue and black, but I have it in deep violet and it looks stunning. The design is largely the same, but the camera module is no longer beveled, giving it a cleaner, squared-off look. The next upgrade is the backplate. It is still flat like before, but it's now glass instead of plastic, and it's now protected by Gorilla Glass 7i, just like its screen, which is also flat. Its aluminum side rails are flat too, but it's now a tad thicker and heavier, giving it a more flagship feel in the hand. It also still has the same IP68 dust and water certification. There is unfortunately no full screen always-on display like with the standard 17 series phones, but the always-on display can be permanently enabled. And Xiaomi have stuck with an optical fingerprint sensor instead of upgrading it to ultrasonic. It still works very well, but it's still far too low for my liking. The good news is that they have now slimmed down the bezels to just 1.29mm all around, down from last year's 1.5. But the screen itself is identical. It's still a 12-bit 6.83-inch AMOLED display with the same 1.5K resolution and the same 144Hz refresh rate, which still only seems to ever go to 120Hz, even when gaming. And it's still not LTPO. There's also the same 480Hz touch sampling rate, but Instant Touch has increased all the way up to 3500Hz. Minimum brightness can now go down to as low as 1 nit, and peak brightness has increased up to 3500 nits. In terms of software, we now get HyperOS 3 skinned over Android 16, and aside from a slightly classier look, some extra optimizations and new fluid animations, it's pretty much the same Xiaomi software we're used to. AI features are pretty much the same, and naturally all of Google's goodies are baked in. Xiaomi are also promising 5 years of major OS updates and 6 years of security patches, but this time they are also including 3 months of free YouTube Premium and Google AI Pro, along with 4 months of free Spotify Premium, and even a free screen replacement within 6 months. So you see, they really have tried to give you as much as possible for that extra $100, and with that, of course, hardware has improved too. This time it's powered by the flagship MediaTek Dimensity 9500 chipset, but because it released earlier this year, it's not running the Plus version of the chip, like we're used to seeing with the T-series phones, because, well, the Plus variant hasn't released yet and there might not even be one. It's a huge upgrade from last year in terms of raw power though, so naturally benchmark scores are right up there with the best flagships around. It also still uses LPDDR5X RAM, but RAM speeds have now increased. However, UFS 4.1 storage speeds are still the same. And while it uses the exact same 3D ice loop cooling system as before, Xiaomi have switched to a better thermal compound. And I definitely noticed the phone keep cooler when playing games. In terms of gaming, it's no surprise to see it average 60 FPS in Genshin Impact on maxed out settings, just like last year. But when it comes to Wuthering Waves, unfortunately, no matter what I tried, the frame generation feature doesn't work like it did last time out, so it sticks to the 60 FPS cap. Though I'm sure this will get fixed with a future update. And even with ultra high res enabled, it averaged a solid 60 FPS. And just like last year, Call of Duty Mobile is still limited to 120 FPS, even though the display is capable of 144Hz. It did manage an average 120 FPS though, even when playing on the very high graphics preset. The vibration motor is the same too, so haptics still feel crisp. And while the dual speakers do seem louder, quality seems a bit more flat, and the bottom speaker tends to get a lot louder than the top. It still has the exact same connectivity hardware, including eSIM support, which is great, but unfortunately it still just has a USB 2 port. And then there's the cameras. which are pretty much identical to last year. You get the same 32 megapixel selfie camera, the same 50 megapixel 5x periscope sensor, a slightly newer 50 megapixel main camera, but the exact same 12 megapixel ultra wide. And even though hardware is identical, post-processing has certainly improved thanks to the new ISP inside the new CPU. Though I wouldn't exactly say the ultra-wide takes great photos. The main sensor, however, seems to take slightly better images than last year, especially in terms of dynamic range, color accuracy, and white balance. And while the periscope does seem to step things up a bit too, it still at time feels a bit flat and washed out, though overall it takes flagship level snaps with fantastic natural depth when close up. It also still offers a super macro mode, but minimum focusing distance has jumped up to 30 centimeters, so you can't get quite as close. It also still has a 10 times optical grade zoom, but it's not quite lossless. Still looks really good though. And higher zoom levels look quite a lot better than last year, with the max zoom level jumping up from 100x to 120x. Portrait mode looks absolutely incredible when using that periscope, and selfie snaps seem to have improved too, especially at night, just not in terms of edge detection. Portrait shots with the rear sensors also look a lot better at night, and this time edge detection is near perfect. But ultra-wide snaps at night are once again very subpar. Taking snaps with the main camera at night left me very impressed, especially when it comes to light noise handling and contrast. Light noise is handled fantastically with the periscope as well, but I find myself struggling to get clear shots every time. 10 times optical grade zoom did a better job at night than I was expecting, and honestly, higher focal length zooms came out looking just as good as any other flagship out there. Ultra-wide video, however, is mediocre at best, aside from stability, which is actually quite good. The frame rate is still capped at 30 when shooting at 4K though. Main video isn't quite as stable, but it definitely produces cleaner video, and can do so at 4K 60 FPS. Panning with the periscope during the day is actually really good, and overall video looks great. The periscope can also film at 4K 60. Only the main sensor can shoot 4K video at 120 FPS, but, and this is a big but, it can finally shoot slow motion video at 4K 120. Not even the Xiaomi 17 Ultra can do this. Just like last year, 8K video is locked to the main camera, but unlike last year, portrait video in movie mode can now be shot at 4K 60 when using the main or periscope. Even the 17 Ultra has this capped at 1080p 30. But unfortunately, there is still only a 1080p 30 FPS portrait video mode option when using the selfie camera. And while you can still shoot in 4K when using regular selfie video mode, it is still completely limited to 30 frames per second, though there is a 60 FPS option if you drop the resolution down to 1080p. Selfie video at night looks just as bad as it did last year though, especially in terms of noise grain and stability, but main video looks fantastic, even when set to portrait mode. The periscope does a decent job here too, aside from a bit too much underexposure. But ultra-wide video, I mean, what is this? I guarantee you I tried everything over and over and must have cleaned the lens a dozen times, but no matter what I did, this is how ultra-wide video came out. The main sensor is the only one that offers a night video mode option, and it looks great in terms of exposure and detail. There's also barely any noise grain, and light noise is handled better than last year, but lens flare is still a problem, and so is stability. And somehow, periscope video at night seems worse than last year. Film grain is a huge issue, light noise is not handled well at all, there's loads of noise grain, and exposure is not compensated very well. But hey, at least panning is still quite smooth. Okay, so cameras are pretty much still T-series standard. Overall, it takes great photos and videos, mainly during the day, and the extra camera modes like 4K slow motion video and 4K portrait video are very nice upgrades. But I wouldn't say you should go ahead and upgrade to this phone if cameras are your main concern. I would upgrade though if you'd like a newer chipset with better performance and faster RAM, a brighter screen with thinner bezels, a glass backplate with a refined design, and a much larger battery with faster charging. Otherwise, it's identical to last year's model. But I have to say, they have definitely given you at least €100 worth of upgrades here, so I wouldn't blame you if you decided to pick one up. I also wouldn't blame you if you decided to rather wait for the Xiaomi 18 series devices instead. As always, this is TechNick, and I'll catch you in the next one.